And we're live.
Okay, great. Welcome back to Senate Economic Development. We just had a productive floor session. And we are back continuing our work on H484. And I think we will begin quickly with Al Cormier, who is the going to represent the Department of Corrections today. We hope booting us up on sections 6 and 7 of this bill, but also maybe giving us an update on what we had in S11 last year with our portable workforce development work in corrections. So Al, welcome.
Thank you.
And I'm sorry we're behind. We're going to try and catch up as we go, and we'll all take blue breaks as needed. And we sadly do not have a scheduled break. So time is short, and
That's all right. You can make
when
this
Senator Kitchell says I need stuff, you get it to her.
All right. So good morning, Al Cormier, Chief of Operations for the Vermont Department of Corrections. I guess we can start with section 6. This was something that was discussed with Representative Branning and Representative Emmons. It wasn't backed by the Department of Corrections because it wasn't in the governor's original bill. So it was an additional ask of $500,000, but I believe that was being moved elsewhere, is what I was told by Commissioner Demo at the end of last week.
Oh, that this ask isn't in our little bucket?
No.
So that makes a difference,
Right.
quite honestly.
Yeah, I just need to get caught up. So section 6 of
6 and
484 that we're talking about.
Correct.
So the
Okay.
supervisory development
Right.
discussion for $500,000.
Right. And so, well, why don't you tell us about it, and then we'll figure out where it's landed. Because I think it is still, anyway, it's still here.
Yes, there's two different, yeah,
It's still
there's the
here.
budget numbers and,
It's still
because I
here.
wasn't finding the bridges thing where
But it's still
it
here.
is on the line.
It's
yeah.
on the,
I
so
was looking for the word.
until I can clarify that, why don't you briefly update us on S11, which was a workforce. We did have, this relates to the employer, the employees of corrections, and the work we did last year affected the inmates.
It's 7.
Right, and
on
that's I'm a
this
little
page.
bit familiar with, but so what was
Corrections professional
how did the
development.
professional
page
development
9.
was initiated? Sounds like it was not initiated by the department.
It was not initiated by the Department of Corrections.
But there are many things that make it through the session.
Oh,
that
yeah,
weren't
no,
initiated.
I just want to
Just needed to be
understand.
clear on that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Because it
So
wasn't
They
included. in
work for the government.
Correct. Thank you.
We're clear
Yeah,
on that.
Right,
We're clear on
that's
that.
an important detail.
So we're beginning on page 8 of section 8, and this is a morale. Anyway, you introduce us to it, if you would.
So this discussion started with, as I said, Representative Graining and Representative Emmons. Discussion about workforce development and how to enhance the correctional workforce. And through those discussions, what we determined was where we're really falling short on our professional development is with our supervisory ranks. That mid-level supervisor is an important function of both facilities and field offices. Yet we're not providing them with the adequate training to be good supervisors. We have supervision in state government from the CAPS. We have small, let's get your feet off the ground kind of supervisory training to get people prepared, but we don't have a comprehensive supervisory development program. So this thought was working with either an existing contractor or a new contractor to come in for a comprehensive development of a supervisory training program. We're hearing from staff and exit interviews that a lot of them are leaving because of a bad supervisor, not so much the job. So trying to enhance that supervisory team in order to better support the workforce for success and hopefully a long career.
So it's really a retention. This is a retention of the workforce piece, and builds on the work that we hope is already happening with building morale in a department that has had real challenges.
Correct. So, I mean, the supervisors are working just as much as the line staff are working, and we want to be able to give them the tools to be able to divide between the work and taking care of the staff.
Great, thanks. And section.
Well,
Wendy,
so
yeah,
is this still in the budget? Because
I'll find out. It's in the budget.
okay, well, then I just have a couple questions just
Yeah.
about it. So what, these consultants, are they, have you used them before? Are they?
Well, it's, so that's part of the way the language is written in here is it's either a current contract or a subsequent.
So, but do you already have contractors?
We were.
So shall expand or shall contract or expand an existing contract.
Correct. So we have an existing contract with the Moss Group, and we're doing a lot of work with them right now.
On training?
Training, professional development at the senior leadership level. They're working with us on our corrections investigative unit. They're working with us on our vision, mission, value rollout. They're kind of a comprehensive corrections consulting group based out of DC.
And are you happy with their performance?
Yes.
Okay, because it just, my concern was, you don't just want to slap training on without, I mean, the mission, vision, and support from the ultimate leadership is really crucial to this. If
Absolutely.
it's just going through the
Yeah,
motions.
we've been very happy with the Moss Group, and they've been involved with us for quite some time and are very familiar with the nuances of the department because of the work they've done with us. Conducted cultural assessments of our surveys of the staff. They've been heavily involved in all things DOC for the last 2 years.
So 2 years. you're-
Yeah, no, it's just, that's part of why the language is the way it is. Okay, that is helpful, but this is a new program.
Yes.
This would be a new, and it is, anyway, this is a conversation we need to have because this is an HR, it's, yes, it's a workforce thing, but it's also an HR and an expansion possibly of a current contract.
And so just one more question on this. So
Yeah.
does the department support it now?
We can't support the ask for the money, no. We support the concept of it, but we can't support.
So if it were free, you'd want it?
Yes,
Or if the governor had suggested they wanted.
correct.
All right. Well, just, I mean, there are some times when you don't want a consultant in, but,
No, I think in this.
so it would
Yeah,
have
it
a
would be-
positive
it would-
impact
it would
on the
be-
department.
Right, which is what Al's here to say. We didn't ask for it, but we'd love it if we got it.
Correct.
I think
Okay.
that's.
That's-
you know,
Good, good.
love
I
it if we
just
got it.
wanted to
Okay,
know that.
so,
Thank you.
yeah, no, very helpful. And Al, the peer support program,
Correct, yeah.
in section 7, can you just chat with us about that? That is not a financial ask, I don't believe.
It is not a financial ask. This is a statutory language ask around ensuring confidentiality of the peer support team members. So our peer support team is made up of volunteers from within the department that are put through a 40-hour training. And they act as peer support members for the staff. Hence the name peer support. So anytime there's a critical incident in a facility, a death, a staff assault, a significant incident involving the incarcerated population, peer support is deployed. It's a critical incident stress management debriefing. CISM is what it's called. So we have a staff clinician that works with our team. We have a quick peer support leader that works with the team, really building this team up to really help take care of the staff. But they're also utilized personal matters, whether it's a divorce, financial issues, child custody issues. It's somebody within the building that's easily accessible that the staff can talk to. And our ask in this is around the confidentiality of those staff, because currently they're not confidential. And the notes and the conversations are not protected under the Public Records Act. So we're asking that they do.
That we
become
add this language.
Yeah.
Great, thank you.
So if something came up that was part of a lawsuit, how would that confidentiality?
Well, I mean, there are mandated reporter
Okay,
clauses in there that would allow us to disclose that information, but in the general context of peer support, we want our staff to feel like they can say what they need to say without it being disclosed elsewhere.
Okay.
and so this is like an EAP program,
Correct. Internally,
and that's the intent, is it
yes.
operate like?
And we
EAP?
work with the AP closely. We've just expanded our work with the AP to include another clinicians in Southern State. So that work, and that's being spearheaded by our peer support team leader. So there's a lot of work happening there.
And that provides even more
Yes.
confidentiality.
Yes.
And remind us what EAP is.
Employee Assistance Program.
Right. Terrific. Thank you, Al. I think unless we have other questions, I want to have you pivot to what we've already invested in,
Yes.
which is the workforce development. We have had cut so many of the workforce development training programs out of corrections from correction. And this is was an attempt to begin to reboot some of those with a traveling unit. How is that working? You haven't asked for more money with it. Has it stood up yet? What's happening?
It's still.
Because as you may, in our other thing, I'm not sure the money has actually been fully spent
I
yet.
don't believe it has.
So that's concerning to us because this is, we have this opportunity. Anyway. So if you'd be kind of just to fill us in on what's going on with that.
Sure. So a couple of things. I know part of that funding went to the establishment of a work program for the women that chipped in. So that process is in place. There's the expansion of the culinary program and then the BEAM program, which is the housing in Middlebury, which those women that are being admitted into the BEAM program are working in Middlebury College coming out of the correctional service piece. So that has been stood up. That program is getting off the ground. Struggling to find the women to go there that actually want to be in the Middlebury area because we don't have a large population from there. So it's relocating some of those women, but we've got a couple. All indications are they're on a good start. Great partnership with Middlebury College, so that seems to be going well.
But we appropriated $1.5 million for this.
Yeah.
And only 15,000 has been spent so far. So this is a big issue for us.
Yes.
There's 1.4 million waiting for you to spend it. So our question is, what are the plans to continue to roll this out? And
Okay, for those of us that weren't here last year, what is it?
Thank you.
it was as I recall, and I should have brought, I just don't have S11 in front of me. But as I recall, and Al can tell us more fully, but it was a mobile. So it was a mobile because we have disbanded so many of our CTE like centers at our correctional facilities. This was a mobile unit that would take and teach inmates certain skills and develop skills and talents, driving them towards being able to get credentials of value while they are serving their time. So it was sort of a mobile unit that was going to be able to be used in 2 or 3 facilities. And I'm just discouraged that nothing's happening. And so we'd love an update, and maybe another time you could come back and fill us in, but
Sure.
It's important for us to use inmates' time productively, as you know, better than I. And we are really wanting to have people, alumni of corrections being able to get to work right away on things that they're really excited about and interested in.
Yeah. So it is moving, the process is moving. So part of the process was shutting down the Vermont Correctional Industries and moving away from the industries-based program to the technical training-based program. So that included the wood shop at Newport, the print shop, the plate shop in St. Albans will continue to operate. But the wood shop has been shut down. We're in the process of moving all of that equipment out. The print shop will be closing down at the beginning of the fiscal year. So as we transition away from an industries-based program, we begin transitioning into the technical-based programming, which includes training of our staff, right? So we have staff that are currently in those roles. So we reclassing those positions to become technical training instructors, working with the CTEs. Kim Bushy, who heads up our program services division, was in Springfield last week at the CTE down there to witness the mobile labs that they have in place. Although
They were at the David Dean Center.
Yes, so they have heavy construction.
They have amazing stuff there.
Yeah.
It's so sad that we can't use them.
So
That you can't use them for this.
I think we're gonna need to have you back on this, because
Okay.
here are the sections.
Okay.
To be shutting down programs where they're actually being trained. I mean, the woodworking shop, printing shop, the license plate, all of those are things they can do also when they get out of prison. So it's a puzzlement to me that we're shutting down those programs. We were hoping those programs would continue and that we would be adding things. So I think what we need to do is have you come back
Okay.
and discuss this. We're not in a position to be adding anything at this point, but we are really in a position to follow up on what we appropriated that we cared a lot about last year. So if we could reschedule, that would be great.
Sure.
And I think at the moment we need to pivot because our
Okay.
time sadly is short, but thank you for this.
No,
This
you're
was
welcome.
helpful.
Yeah, it was very helpful.
And more to follow. So
Okay.
we will schedule in the next week or so an update on
Okay.
that. If
Sounds
that's
good.
okay.
Yeah.
That would be great. And the decision of why to close some things, which are
Yeah, I can
actually
certainly-
the only things we have left.
Yeah. I can
Okay.
expand on that.
Great,
Sure.
thanks.
All right.
And you're gonna hear about that in institutions.
Probably.
Well, now you're dangerous enough to
Sometime, I
ask
know.
more questions. Yeah,
We'll see.
great.
All right. Thank
Thanks,
you.
Al. Sorry to,
No
No,
worries.
this is actually better because
Yeah.
then we won't be rushed.
Okay.
yeah.
All right.
Okay,
Thank you.
great. Thank you so much. Tom, would you join us? And happily so if you'd be kind enough, what's happened with your $8 million is it's been pulled out of our little box, which is great because it was a big piece of our $40 million box that we had. So happily Brownfields has been taken out. So we aren't having to be its biggest advocates, which of course we are. And we are not having to advocate for it because it's already taken care of, I understand, with Senator Kitchell. So you're going to need to go and we'll advocate for it, but you're going to need to chat with her about where it's landed because we hope it's landed intact. So if you just give us a brief update on the Brownfields program,
Sure,
because we're not having to, it's in the bill, but it's not part of our little box.
right,
that we
and
have to
also
defend.
I have a request for one minor change in 484. So
Great.
but let me first do,
Have you spoken to David about
I have not.
it? Okay,
So I was hoping he would be here, but I will
Great.
talk to him.
well, he's here
So
sort of.
I gave you a spreadsheet of the revolving loan fund program. and
Right here.
Yeah, and then I also reached out to the Agency of Commerce this morning. And I just want to give you a brief overview of where we are at. So so I'll go
Just
with first
introduce
with the
yourself.
revolving, oh, sorry, Tom Kennedy, I'm the Director of Community Development at the Mount Scottney Regional Planning Commission. We are also the administrators for the state RPC assessment program, the $1 million that we have requested. And Mount Scottney Regional Commission sadly has the largest brownfield program in the state of Vermont because at one time we had 1 million square feet of brownfields in the town of Springfield alone. And then we have about 250,000 in Windsor. So the revolving loan fund. So the Agency of Commerce got $10 million. They created a grant program for cleanup. And to date, they have spent of that 10 million, $9.7 million has been already encumbered, with the result that at the end, we should be able to build 427 housing units, 564 jobs will be created, and we'll have cleaned up about 42.5 acres of brownfields.
Ooh, that's exciting.
So we're spending the money. The demand out there far outstrips what we have for funding. And having said that, I also want to thank the legislature for its support over the last number of years on this. As far as the RPC assessment program, all the monies have been allocated and encumbered. And we have a total, and I updated these numbers, but now we have a total of 61 projects that have been funded. And
Sorry, are you switching gears out
I'm
of
now
Brent?
just fishing gears out of the Agency of Commerce. Sorry. So any questions on the Agency
Well,
of Commerce, $10 million?
So
That-
you're switching out of brownfields?
No, I'm in
Okay,
brownfield.
you're
So
still
there's,
in brown-
okay, let me back up. The legislature has funded through the Agency of Commerce 2 programs.
Yeah.
One, which is the agency's own revolving loan fund program for $10 million. And the second program was a $1 million program that went to the Regional Planning Commission
for
for assessment,
For assessment,
for assessment dollars.
and they administered, and we fought to get that back in, and it's
Correct.
back in.
Yes, thank you. So the numbers that I just gave you were for the Agency of Commerce's revolving loan fund.
Right, which,
For last
For
fiscal year,
FY
right?
22.
Okay.
How are we doing? Are we okay? You
we're
want me to
fine.
go to the Regional Planning Commission
Yep.
one?
Mhm. So,
So last year, there was a hiccup in the language for the RPC assessment program. And the attorneys at the Agency of Commerce said that they could not provide the funding to us because of the language. So what you did this year in BAA is we corrected that language. And so there's $1 million of FY, what was supposed to have been appropriated in FY 23 is now going to go to the RPCs. So what I'm going to tell you right now is the FY 22 funds that the Regional Planning Commission's got the $1 million. Is that clear?
right, and then
They
your
split
ask,
$1 million.
your ask for FY 24 is an additional million, which is at the top of page 32.
Right, and I'm gonna get to the language in 1 second. So, the FY 22 monies, we distributed, and you can see in the second box, we had a breakdown of all the regional planning commissions that participated, and we had a total of 61 projects that were done throughout the state. The North NVDA did not get any funding because they had funding from EPA for assessment. So they didn't.
And remind us what that is, that's the
That's-
Northeast Kingdom.
Yes, Northeast Kingdom Economic Development Association.
And for people new to this committee, just remind them what you did with that million. What does the assessment work look like?
So,
Give us a picture of it.
sure. So generally speaking, is if you are going to go through a lender, you must get what we call a phase one. And a phase one is a history of the site. And from that phase one, what they do is they determine whether or not there are what they call RECs, which is recognized environmental contaminants. And if there are RECs that appear to be present on the site, we then go to a phase two. And the phase two generally is a lot of testing and drilling. So they test for pollutants in the walls and in building materials and the floors. They also do vapor testing. And then they go outside the building and they do drilling, and they look for contaminated soils or again, soil gases and things like this. That phase two can be very, very expensive. After they've done all the work on the phase two, you can then go to what we call a corrective action plan. And sometimes the corrective action plan needs to be reviewed by Department of Environmental Conservation. And then if you have PCBs on your property, it has to go to EPA in what we call TSCA, and that's done. Once you have a corrective action plan, then the applicant can go to the Agency of Commerce and ask for grant funding through their revolving loan fund.
So you help sites and communities and towns or whoever is doing this work, applying for this work or the art to navigate phase one and phase two to get them to a correction act to the
Correct.
point where they are able to ask the agency for the money
That is right.
to clean up.
That's right. Or they can go to, there's a number of regional planning commissions that also have revolving loan funds, and they can go to those as well.
But you're the navigator. You function.
We
as
just
the-
navigate it, right?
Okay, and that's what this assessment.
And
was.
we've heard loud and clear from the legislatures, they want to see geographic distribution of these funds. So we work really hard to try to do that. Having said that, there are areas of the state where they've never had very much manufacturing. They've been an agrarian part of the state. Well, they don't have much in the way of brownfield. Whereas Senator Harris and I were just talking about the Brattleboro, southern Vermont area where there's been a history of manufacturing, and up in the Northeast Kingdom in St. Albans, they're going to really ask for more funding.
Yeah.
So it's not going to be always.
Right, well, it's where the brownfields are, Randy.
Just a question, peripheral question. I know that there's some differences between the federal levels of PCVs and what Vermont has established. Does that impact any of what you do?
No, because we need to follow the federal standard for PCV.
Are there any
So, no, let me
impediments that
make a
Vermont is
clarification.
opposing?
You may be talking about PCV vapor standards. There is a difference and what we're doing is we're following the state standard at this point because it is higher than the federal standard.
Okay.
So do you want me to go to the bill now? Or
Just, I think this is an easy question, or I had thought
I
that,
always get nervous
I
when
know.
I think it's.
I know, well, just with brownfields, I thought that there were multiple levels of remediation, and some are fit for folks to live there, for residential, and some are not. Does the state prioritize one or the other? Because it's just a lot more expensive to
Yes, so.
get it to the level.
What we call it is we have a cleanup based on use. So you have a cleanup standard based on use. So for instance, if you're going to have a daycare center on a site, the cleanup standard is going to be very, very high.
Right.
If it's going to be a facility where basically you're going to have all impervious surface over it, so you already have your seals and everything, then the use can be a little bit different. So for instance, we're doing a project in Springfield, and we have to remove like 2,000 cubic yards of soil because there's going to be contact with individuals.
Okay,
Whereas in other places, we just pave it
right,
or put concrete over it.
right, and cap it.
And cap it,
essentially. Yeah.
exactly.
Randy, do you have something else?
No, I'm just thinking of the long-term implications of that as usage changes over time. Are the parcels in some way marked or identified so that if, let's say, 20 years from now, someone wants to put a daycare center on the site, the rules have changed?
So it's in the deed. There's
Yeah,
deed
it goes
restrictions
forward
on
in
it.
the deed, so that.
And there's all kinds of information from DEC that's associated with the.
That gets
So
attached.
there'll be no surprises whatsoever. But we also have people that want to raise the standard and then have to go back in and redo things.
So our time is,
Okay.
our floor
So-
time
Sorry.
sadly.
All right,
cut
so
in.
section 32.
Section 32, you have language you want to change and you're
I
gonna
want
have
to add one word.
Oh. And it isn't a shall or a may.
It's not a shall or a may. On line 16, let me start with
Oh,
line 15.
You have a different,
Oh, I took this off your website, 484, the 323 draft,
2.1.
2.1. I have
Okay,
that.
so on that, it would be section 33
32.
in ours, so that's
Oh,
okay.
okay.
Mine shows
So it's a grant, does it begin
No.
with number 3, a grant may be used?
No, it's,
I have this.
Okay, we
Okay.
just have different versions. Okay,
okay. So let me, just read it. It says the Department of the Department of Economic Development shall use the $10 million appropriated in fiscal year 2024 for brownfield redevelopment for and I want to add assessment, remediation, and redevelopment.
Oh, that's on page 31. Yeah, that for the assessment,
And the add assessment
for the assessment, comma, remediation.
and redevelopment of brownfield sites be
Right.
used in the same manner.
So we just need to let David know that, and we will, in our next draft, have that included.
Well, I had, everything else is okay. And if we ever have more time, I'll go through the nitty gritty of this, but yeah, I know you don't.
We would love that because this is
Yeah.
a committee, I mean, these bring back our downtowns. This makes more
That's
space in our
exactly
downtown
right.
village centers, which we, in our housing bill, have just put more burden on. So we are wanting to get these cleaned up so that we
Yes.
can use,
Okay,
we're hip, we're hip. Thank
Thank you.
you.
Thank you.
And your 8, I would encourage you to check in with Senator Kitchell on that 8 million. Your 1 million is with us, but the 8 million is in her bucket.
Thank you.
Okay? Thank you, Tom.
You're
We
welcome.
really appreciate this work.
Oh, thank you. And thank you for the support.
Well, did you say it was a million square cubic? What was it in Springfield that we had to?
About, at one point, there was 1 million square feet of brownfields.
Oh my God.
It'll take years to get rid of.
Oh, yes, what we destroy, it takes years to recover.
Well, it's PCBs,
Yeah.
it's very, very expensive.
Thank you.
very much.
Okay, Wendy, we are going to pivot to you and I'm really, we're so, and Michelle, you'd be kind enough to join us. Michelle, pull up a chair. And we're gonna pivot now to sections 12 of the bill, which is, I believe, our UVM VSAC partnership on keeping our college. Well, you tell us what you're doing. 'Cause,
Yeah.
So, good morning.
This is slightly different. So,
I'm Wendy Koenig from UVM. This is my colleague Michelle Ferroti, who works at the Office of Engagement at UVM. So this program has been named the Green Mountain Job and Retention Program.
oh, it's got a name.
It has a name. Last year, we received $2.5 million to
Right?
distribute over a 2-year period in order to keep recent graduates of Vermont colleges in Vermont. to
And
work.
this is all colleges.
It's all colleges.
And we already
Public
just,
and private.
just to boot up our committee, we heard about this from Marilyn Cargill the other day.
Great.
And have you met everybody here? This is your first time this year,
It
right?
is my first time this year.
And have you met Wendy?
I have not.
No, hi,
Nice to meet you.
nice to meet you too.
I think you know everybody else,
I do.
but Michelle, I think this is your first time. I'm Allison Clarkson,
Ann Cummings.
Wendy Harrison.
And Randy Brock.
so it's good to have you. And
Thank you.
so Marilyn has teed this up for us.
Okay. So basically, the House Economic and Commerce Committee asked for another 2.5 million to continue this program. I'm gonna let Michelle run through the specifics really quickly for you of where we are with it. It is a partnership with UVM and VSAC. VSAC was instrumental in helping us do the build out of, it's essentially a $5,000 reward if you stay and work for a Vermont employer for 2 years.
So thanks for having me, everyone. And Marilyn is, I speak to Marilyn almost every day now, so.
Right, I bet
it's
you
a
do.
great partnership with the second UVM, but basically, as Wendy was saying, is this is really to incentivize and keep our recent graduates. It's a statewide initiative. It's not just for UVM students, which is something that we've really been cognizant of, and VSAC, I think, has been pivotal in making that known. So throughout the program, there have been different stages, but we're hoping that with these $5,000 grants and loan repayment through any loan that a student may have when they graduate, we're going to have 400 recipients for the next 2 years, which is really wonderful. So we appreciate you all thinking about doing it again. Right now, we're in our second phase of the marketing strategy. So we did hire a marketing consultant. She has made our logo and kind of made us all these beautiful language and pieces for the marketing piece to make it easier for the colleges and institutions to utilize. So our phase one was definitely going to the other colleges and institutions across the state and pushing it to their college campuses and through their marketing strategies. Some have made their own websites. We have a website for this. We're doing direct to consumer kind of marketing where they're getting text messages about the program. So it's really amplifying right now. Are now moving into phase two is the employer piece. So we're really working with all employers in the state saying, if you're hiring a new recent grad, maybe they're an intern with you already, maybe they are a friend of the family, whomever, and they're gonna work here and stay here in Vermont, talk about this program and kind of make it part of your package, especially with the nonprofit sector. They've really been loving that idea of putting it as part of their benefits package. So that's been really positive, and we are starting that phase. We have started this month. So not only is there a big press release out now, and it's going through all the media stations and outlets, but we're really seeing the applicants coming in now. So we're around 38 applicants, and through.
But your hope is for 400.
for 400.
Let me just
But
say
just
that it's
started.
only been
Yes.
open for a few weeks.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say,
It opened
Yes.
in March,
Yeah.
so it's,
I'm just gonna tag on that to this committee.
Yeah.
So new programs, it's a new program, right?
Right.
Just take a notion, take it in that this is a new program. We passed this in May.
Yeah.
And it's, the new program took that long to stand up and it's only just been open. So we now have, we have 38 who've applied and have gotten. We're hoping for 400, but just to give you a notion that new
Mhm.
programs take a while to stand up.
the other piece of it is that, we're getting into the season where we think we'll get a lot more quickly, because as people are graduating and taking jobs, May and June will be really pivotal to see the numbers.
No, the timing on it's good, but it's just,
No, it does take
it's
a
just
long time.
frustrating to
Yeah,
see how long it takes for
Yeah.
new programs to be put together.
for sure.
Well, we are.
Sorry, so keep going, I
No,
apologize.
That's great. No, we are very hopeful that we'll get the 400 applicants. Already having 38 and it's only been a few weeks is pretty exciting. And the fact that it's not just UVM, it's Castleton, it's UTC, it's, the array of colleges. So it means the marketing is definitely getting out there and working. And again, like Wendy said, with graduation coming up, people are now stopping to think about summer and thereafter. So,
I think it's also important to mention that part of the marketing strategy, as Michelle said, is companies, but some of the companies are also offering a match for this program, so an additional 5,000 on top of what they're getting in loan forgiveness from the program.
That's great.
Yeah,
I didn't-
not all employers are doing
Right.
that,
right.
but
Those that can.
many are choosing to.
Are they doing it as a cash match or a loan? I guess the person can choose to pay off their loan.
Right.
So that's great. Do you know how many companies have already
So we,
offered this?
so I know about 6 companies that are looking to do this with their programs.
Wow, that would be great. What a great match. So then get actually 5,000 forgiven in a year
Yes.
as
And
opposed.
part of Michelle's job and those who work with her is to reach out to companies as we move this program forward and try to get more people on board doing the match.
Yeah.
Is anybody, we have just started, but are we going to, because I assume our goal, putting all this money into it, is not just to keep folks for a couple of years, they pay off their loans, goodbye. I'm off to New York City. Are we setting up, as we're setting this up, a means to track
Yes.
how many of those folks actually stay here? Maybe they'll get transferred within their company, but,
So yeah, is Ann's question covered in the
Yeah,
data
In the
collection
data
piece?
collection piece, yeah,
okay.
so we can flip to that,
So that's, because that's a key question for all of
Yeah.
us. Here we invest
yeah.
and then
Yeah,
what
we're
do,
not sure.
what do we see for it? What
Yeah.
bang are we getting for that buck?
Yeah, and actually Maryland was a huge partner in this piece because
I know
VSAC is the
VSAC
one,
tracks.
yes, that did the application
I'm
for
on
us.
the SAC board.
Oh, there, yeah, so they were really instrumental in making the application, it's held on their website. So we had a lot of conversation around data collection and what we can collect in terms of where are you in the region? What business are you working for? Is it government? Is it nonprofit? Is it private? This obviously is hoping that these applicants are confirming that they will be here for 2 years. So the first year they'll get 2,500, the second year they'll get another 2,500. And with that, they'll start to make their community is really what we're hoping, is really just pulling them in, getting them started, getting their legs on the ground and getting some resume building, and then also staying within that company and creating longevity.
2 points. One is the $5,000 was very specific and purposeful, because when we see people leave to go to New York and Boston, the difference in salaries between 6,000 and 7,000. So 5 isn't that much, but it's getting close to being similar. And then the second thing is, if we're looking to collect data for longer than the 2 years that they're in the program, we can talk to VSAC about, can we set that up as part of it?
Given they already do it.
Yeah. I mean, we can have them do it for this program.
So Michelle, if you'd be kind enough to chat about that with Marilyn, that would mean a lot to us. We just need to be able to
It makes good sense.
track over time where our,
And I'd like to track what the reason for going is. is it salary,
Mhm.
job
Mhm.
progression, you may get transferred? Or is it that you can't find housing?
Yeah, all those things
I
need
mean,
to,
Yeah.
we
Right.
need to know,
And
are we
so-
losing because you can't buy a home?
Yeah.
Or, or because our wages aren't
Right.
keeping pace?
So actually, after the 2-year mark of this program, we have a survey that BSAC is going to build with us. And it's going to ask those questions of how did it work out? Was it easy for your employer and you to have this HR send a letter? I mean, from the little minute details all the way to those, are you planning on staying? What are your challenges? What are the strengths of this
Yeah.
program?
That's great.
So-
Can we survey them earlier? Maybe with
Then
a
after the
smaller,
2 years?
well, both. I mean, because people actually generally like to fill out surveys. So if we do go ahead and appropriate more funds to do this again, obviously it would happen quicker.
Mhm.
So if we could learn from the first batch of folks and say, how'd you hear about it? Do you like it? Is this causing you to stay in Vermont? Would you have stayed in Vermont anyway?
We
all
need-
that, yeah.
We need to communicate with them anyway, so
Yeah.
of course we do.
Yeah,
Mhm.
that'd be great. And
Yeah.
then some places have new resident, young professionals groups.
Right.
And so, maybe you could even let them know about those
Yeah,
kinds
that's a
of
great idea.
organizations so they can start connecting.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah,
Okay.
great.
Get them
I-
attached, right?
Yeah,
Isn't that
get
the
them,
point?
get them.
Get them
Loving
hooked on
Vermont.
Vermont.
Yeah.
This is
Shouldn't be
terrific.
hard to do. It's a good.
Thank you. We're
Yeah.
thrilled.
Can
And
you perhaps tell me a little bit about the criteria for selection?
Yeah, so we're working, we don't want it all to be Chittenden County. That's not our goal.
clearly,
I see geography, workplace, institution. but-
Yeah, so after we get the applicant pool, again, we just started, but after we receive all the applications for the year, we are going to sit down as a team and really make sure that the diversity of the regional, the institution, and the workplace is this. So.
It's essentially a
It'll be a-
first come, first served program. However, one of the criteria is that it has to be a job that requires a bachelor degree.
Mhm.
That's part of the criteria. So it's not a program that if you're going into some sort of part-time work, we would love people to be doing work that's in their major field, something that's similar to that, but the jobs that are eligible for this program need to require a bachelor's degree.
right. And that's one of the only, other than hopes, I think intent language that it would serve all regions of the state.
Correct.
And because,
Well, how does a person get into, what are the mechanics of getting into the program and then advancing to approval?
So they just have to apply, really.
It's being
That's
Do they have to know
simple.
about it?
It's
It's marketed at the colleges, it's marketed through those employers who are participating?
Correct.
Any other way that it's marketed?
Well, again, through the news outlets. I mean, we're just trying to get it out as much as possible because it is brand new. And so that's their first step, is really just applying.
I mean, well, you just do something like, for the list of every person who's going to be graduating with a bachelor's degree from
Yes,
UVM,
yes.
your piece of paper or some other document or.
Yeah.
oh, social
So
media,
we're-
she
yeah,
mentioned, you mentioned social media.
We have the text going out to all graduating seniors. We're utilizing senior weeks. That's a big promotion right now. So if, for instance, at UVM, there will be 1,000 posters going in everyone's cup when they go pick up their registration for senior week. And that already has over 1,000 people registered to go. So all the colleges are using that. They're using their career centers. They're using faculty, the deans. So everybody's really trying to push this
Yeah,
program.
and how do you get more employer participation? at this
So
point?
through the job fairs, we have news at the Office of Engagement. We have about 4,000 people on our newsletter, and it's all employers. And that's going out this month about the program. All of our conference calls have been talked about through the RDCs, the regional planning commissions. So
Did you deal with any of the business associations like
yeah,
AIB and like?
the Burlington Business Association and all, there's one in
Vermont Chamber,
Rutland, the Vermont
yeah.
Chamber. Yes.
So, and I think you mentioned, Michelle, of the 38 applicants you already have,
Mhm.
hopes for 400. Of the 38, we already see a range of colleges, right? We already see Castleton and
Yep.
UVM.
We have UVM, sorry,
Yeah, who else?
St. Mike's, Champlain, VTC.
Okay, so a range,
Yeah,
not so many east side.
not yet, but I have gotten some calls because there were some graduates in a program for February, so they're excited.
Right.
There's 300 graduates from Middlebury
Terrific.
that are looking to.
Thank you very much. This is terrific, and we look forward to staying current on the number of applicants. So
Yeah.
let us know, shoot us an email, but
Okay.
before the end,
I know.
before we present this on the floor, keep us
For sure.
updated.
Okay.
We'll do.
Because this will,
7 days has an arc, right?
yeah, 7 days just did a
Which
piece.
is Great.
Yeah,
Yeah, no, it's terrific.
Yeah.
yeah.
Thank you very
Thank you
much.
for your
time.
time.
Yeah,
Thanks for having us.
thank you mucho. So we are now going to pivot to sections 38 and 39 with Chris Cochran, Richard Amore, and Gary Holloway. So, yes, do we,
Thank you.
Which end do you want?
Thanks.
Have a good day.
Too.
Chris Cochran is
Yeah,
sick.
he said, just be Richard and I on the call. Chris is not doing well today.
Oh, too bad. So Richard is already on and Gary is going to join us at the head of the table. Hi, Richard.
Good morning.
Hi. So Gary, welcome. It's good to
thanks.
have you. And if,
Good to be here.
as, so if you'd be kind enough to fill us in
Yes.
on sections 38 and 39, which as I recall, do not have a financial ask, but are in language improvements of our wonderful Better Places program and some other things. So take it away.
I'm gonna start with section 39, if you don't mind, and then I'm gonna
Okay.
pass off to Richard to touch on
And just-
38. And I'm Gary Holloway.
And just, have you met, I think you've
I
met
feel like we
everybody
did a
else.
long time ago.
Yeah, I'm Gary Holloway. I'm the downtown program manager.
Yeah, okay,
Community planning, and I met you down in Bellows Falls when you were,
okay,
Yeah.
great,
yeah.
thanks.
Nice to see you.
Nice to
Yeah,
see you.
nice to see you all. Thanks for having me.
Your program was one we have relied on heavily in our housing bill and we love, as you know.
Yeah,
So, so you want to start with section 39?
if you
Great.
don't mind, I was gonna
No.
start with section 39 and talk about that section, and then I can hand it off to Richard, who can touch on the Better Places changes in section 38. Once again, Gary Holloway, downtown program manager, Department of Housing and Community Development. We are looking to make some minor changes to section 39 that will help achieve two things. One is our downtown development board, who is authorized to oversee all of our designation programs, generally meets about 10 times a year. So it's not always that they meet every single month of the year. And the way that the language is written now is such that if we get an application for a new designated village center or designated downtown or new town center or neighborhood development area, one of our 4 designated areas, we have 45 days for the board to act.
Yeah.
And that's not always possible if we have a month where they don't meet, like say in August or December. So we wanted to change the language that would basically give a little bit more time for staff and board to review and act. So the way that the wording is in there now, previously says that we have 45 days to act, and we're asking to have 45 days, after
After the receipt of
After
the
receipt.
application.
and then the next board meeting after receipt. So
Yeah.
45 days first, and then the board meeting. and
So
then-
that's actually technically in section 40 at the top of page 42.
Oh.
Great.
So that's the one change we'd like to make, and there's 4 of the designations that we're asking to kind of keep it the same amount, 45 days, but slight change in the language to allow actually a little bit more calendar days to kind of get that review. Typically staff can get to these relatively quickly and get prepared for the board meeting. So oftentimes we're doing it a lot less than that, but because we are not, the board's not meeting on certain months, we thought that would be a proper correction to make. So I'm happy to take any questions on that before I jump to the other
I
correction.
know, we're.
Go for it.
Rush. Does your department provide the staff for those boards?
So Commissioner Hanford is the chair of that board.
Right.
And then as staff, we,
Oh, because, so it's one board for the whole state?
It's one board that
For some reason, I
oversees the
thought
whole
there
state.
were,
They're
there was a
different.
local board.
there are different
It's-
organizations that are embedded locally, like the downtown organization in Brattleboro or in Berlin.
Yeah, so it's.
Well, which board are you talking about? Oh,
this is
yeah, it
the
says
this
the
is
state
This is the
board.
state downtown development board,
Okay.
which is made up of, Commissioner Hanford's the chair. And we
Okay.
have representatives from different agencies and representative from municipal government and
Right.
from BPA.
And
And
then
then we
you
staff it. We staff
Okay.
the meetings.
and you review the applications
Correct.
against criteria.
Correct. That's correct.
Okay,
Yeah, and
then
present that to the board for consideration.
okay. So all the study that's going on about the different designations, that may change this, or maybe not.
They'll still need time to consider.
Yeah,
How
this is
is-
really just kind of a time
Okay.
piece where the designation study is looking at, many different things, aspects of the program.
So after we hear about these sections, I think we'd all love an update on how that study work is going on the designations.
Okay, and I probably will, we're just kicking things off, and I'll talk about that in just a minute if you want.
Okay, so the other ask is in Better Places.
Well, there's one more correction in this section that
That's
we're
right.
asking for. So
On the
our
per diems.
downtown development board does not receive any per diem,
Yes, that was.
like
what I
other
was
state
saying.
boards. And while we're in here, we thought it would make sense to just add the downtown development board as authorized to receive per diem for travel and for the cost of attending.
The modest per diem that still exists and hasn't been changed.
The
for
one that's
50
been
years.
the one that's existing, so
Right.
was asking them to be added in all fairness.
Right,
So that's the two pieces in there, and I did want to provide an opportunity, just one quick opportunity, I know your time is short, to just make you aware, as it's related to the downtown program, that there is an $800,000 request in the governor's budget for support of the Vermont Downtown Program. We're 25 years into the downtown program, and we need funding to help support staff salary, as well as to support some 24 designated downtowns that we have in the state in our program as a whole. And obviously, this per diem cost out of the board is like one example of a piece that would come out of that, and my salary and funding that would go support this 24 downtowns. So I wanted to just make you aware, so you're not surprised later if you didn't get testimony on that. But that's
no, I appreciate it. It's not in our, it is in the base budget, so not in the box that we have to work on at this very moment.
Yeah.
But appreciate you bringing it up, and I can't recall, I don't
It
think
looks
it's
like
in,
it's up here.
it's in the base budget,
Okay.
and so we don't have to
I
worry
just
about
wanted to
that.
make you aware.
Yeah, no, that's very
while you're
helpful.
on here. Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, because they all go hand in glove.
Right. Right.
And how many people serve on the state downtown development board?
Oh, good question. It's about 12 to 15. I don't have the
Yeah,
exact
so pretty-
number.
Right,
But the 800,000 is for staff salary.
that's for staff. That's not for the designated downtown board.
Correct.
That's
Yeah,
not-
so 25 years into the program, and historically my salary has been a pass-through from V-Trans through downtown transportation fund. It hasn't been properly funded in the agency budget. It's just one of those wonky ways of funding staff that was never really properly corrected over the years.
Interesting, okay. Because I was
Yeah.
thinking, aren't you paid now?
I'm paid now, so it's
Thank
not-
you for
It's not new
volunteering for all
staff.
this
It's not
stuff.
new staff. It's not additional
Okay.
staff.
You're
It's,
not state employees.
I'm a state employee.
You're a
The
state-
Department of Housing and Human Development. yeah.
Okay, yeah, that's what I thought.
But paid through
Or-
V-Trans.
The board is not, well, some of the board are state employees because they're representatives from V-Trans or
Right.
from A&R or from
Right.
the
So,
service department.
So there are people for whom this $50 would not apply.
no,
Because
They don't get paid the same,
No,
right?
I understand. So is this all the staff for this program? Or let me say it differently, does the $800,000 include the staff costs for all of the staff who are in the program?
I'm the only staff for the designated downtown program that would be related to that funding. There's no other staff in the, and I don't get paid $800,000.
Yeah.
The idea is that a bit of this money is, part of it pays for per diem for my salary, as well as helping to support 24 organizations that are mandated under
Right.
statute, as a partnership with the municipality to do the work.
This is the money that we have been wanting to get and tried to do last year, and we got language in, but not enough money. And this helps support our downtown boards. And there are how many downtown boards at the moment?
We have 24 organizations and boards, local and boards around the state.
Right, but they don't all have active boards, as I recall.
They all have, yeah, each one is required to under.
Yeah, but they don't know employees. I mean, there was what's it called? The downtown.
Organization,
There's
the
downtown
two I know
organizations.
have staff.
So for example, in Bellows Falls,
Yeah.
there's Bellows
Yep.
Falls.
But they have no state
Vista.
support. It's a state program, but they have no state support, which is what we dealt with
Right.
last year.
That's correct. We've had 25 years of kind of mandating kind of that the municipality has a
Right.
downtown organization to support downtown community revitalization, economic community revitalization, but the state has not provided any direct funding support over that time, except through grants to municipalities or tax credits to property owners. And those kind of incentives we have offered through the program, but never any support directly to the organizations that are actually doing.
Right, which is what this is for.
So this will really help those organizations because
Yeah.
they're
Hugely.
absorbing those
Right.
costs now.
That's
Right,
correct.
All right.
exactly.
Yeah.
Great.
And having to fundraise for them. So,
Great, great.
Yeah.
great. And
Well,
now
thanks for giving me
we,
an opportunity to just kind of
No,
make you
it's
aware, so
terrific.
it's not a surprise.
Yeah.
so let's shift to Better Places, the section 38. I believe it's section 38. Is that right? Yeah, Better Places. And Better Places just has a language shift or has a,
Richard.
Richard?
Wrong, please.
on deck?
Absolutely. Yeah, good morning, Senators. Richard Amore, Department of Housing and Community Development for the record. We're just requesting a small change to the enabling statute for Better Places, changing, there's a line in there saying only one project awarded per community per calendar
Okay.
year.
Let me just tell my committee where it is. It's on page 40. And it is line 14 and 15. And take it away.
Sorry, Senator Clarkson. We're requesting one change, to change that to 3 projects per community per year. These projects are really small projects, that we're averaging about a $10,000 project, anywhere from $10,000 to $20,000 grants for these communities. And we've had a few of the communities come through in early of the year, like in January, February with a project, they raise their funds, they get the grant agreement. And then there may be another project in a different part of the community in a different designated village center that wants to move forward later that year or in the middle of the summer, and they can't because of this guardrail of being one project per year, and they have to wait a whole another 6-8 months before they can move forward. And it's only caused a handful of pinch points in the program in its first year where communities are really eager to go. This program was all about being nimble and flexible and responsive. There's no application deadlines. It's rolling kind of intake process. And when we come to this one project per community per year rule, it slows down that local momentum and it slows down that project steam. And we say, oh, well, you can apply in 2024 or 2025. And it really slows down that momentum. And so we're asking a change for the second year of the program to 3 projects per community per year.
Thanks. Any questions?
I was going to ask if there's a geographical spread,
There's,
and it is in here, so I'm
Yeah.
fine. Thanks.
yeah. Thank you. I think I'm fine too. I can see, because some of these projects are very small. So in a larger town like Springfield, you could do a pocket park somewhere and maybe want to do an improved bus stop somewhere else. I mean, so they're tiny projects, and the notion of letting towns, as long as we keep the geographic distribution of it, I think this is good.
Yeah, and that's what.
Very successful.
Yeah, so sorry, that it's hard to read the room when I'm on Zoom. Sorry, I couldn't be there today.
I know it's hard for us. There's a bit of a lag. How many, just to give us an update, I know there's a whole beautiful report on Better Places, but would you be kind of just to remind us how many Better Places projects have been rolled out to date?
Yeah, so we kicked off the program last March. The first project went underway for fundraising and crowdfunding in March of 2022. We've had 21 successful projects from the program successfully raise their crowdfunded dollars to get the state 2-to-1 match. All 21 first projects have been successful. We have not had anybody not meet their crowdfunding goal to get the grant. And then we have 3 live projects right now fundraising for active campaigns and closing out those campaigns next month. And all likely of getting 3 more grants. So I would say 24 projects right now. We have 7 projects in the pipeline, and we've conducted over 130 pre-flights from all over the state, from Canaan down to Pownell to all the corners of the state. It's a lot of interest. Communities are at different places where they're coming to the program, and some are ready to roll right now, and some will need a few months to kind of get their ducks in a row. But a lot of interest and a lot of success in this first year for sure.
It's just terrific. Thank you. That's terrific. I think it's been a program we're all proud of and hit most of our communities in some capacity. And it's always useful when you let us know when something's opening so that we can go and appreciate it and see our dollars in action.
Absolutely. We've only had 7 of the projects kind of completed their projects last year. A lot of them are construction projects, so they're kicking off this spring and summer. And we were hoping to do some kind of event and celebrate kind of the first year of the program, maybe at the Inversure at the Pavilion raising later in June. So I'll be sure to let everybody know.
Great. Keep us up to date. And just for Wendy's and Ann, who are new to this in this committee, the match is dollar for dollar, right? They have to raise the money in a crowdsourced fashion, and then we match it dollar for dollar.
2 to 1.
2 to 1. That's right. 2 to 1. Sorry, match 2 to 1.
Wait, is the 2 ours or the 2 theirs?
2 is the state's fund.
2
is the
two
state.
So
Okay,
if-
I was hearing that other way.
right.
If,
So, yeah.
if a community raises $10,000, they'd get a $20,000 grant from the state for a $30,000 project.
But our average grant is less than 10,000, as I recall, right?
Yeah, I think our average grants are right around 10,000 or 10 to 12,000 because some projects are raising 3,500 or 5,000 to get a $10,000 grant. A lot of the smaller art projects or the event type programming, bringing people and life downtown to Main Street. Those are the lot smaller grants, and those cap out at $10,000.
Great.
I remember Joint Fiscal Committee didn't fund this as part of the ARPA recovery. So I think
That's why we became crowdsourced.
yes, this committee
Right.
put it.
We got creative, along with Richard's help. Terrific. I'm afraid we have to pivot. So thank you for this.
Thank you.
Thank you for your good work.
Yeah.
Our housing bill really relies on it so much on this department, on your department, and on your work in particular, Carrie. So thank you. Yeah.
Something I'd like to start tracking because it's hit several of my communities. Montpelier used to be very lively during the day because of state employees. We don't have, I don't know, but you don't have any trouble getting a parking space in Montpelier. That hasn't happened in 50 years. Barry, again, their chip was to provide parking. We worked to get state employees into downtown. Well, now they're all working remotely, and what was 70 is now 10 on any day. That's going to hit a lot of our downtowns because having people that work there, and I've traveled through southern downtowns and they're dead during the day. Nobody's there because there's no businesses downtown. And I just hope we're monitoring it. I'm very concerned about, my
For good reasons.
downtowns. We're not there. And I'm wondering if anybody is talking and thinking about what do we do now? Because I don't think we're going back to everybody has to come into the office 5 days a week and maybe 6 or 7. And what are we gonna do?
I appreciate that. It's a big, I know you're busy. It's a big conversation and we're acutely aware of the impact of,
I think this is an important conversation, and with institutions too, with BGS, particularly in Montpelier, but I mean, it's true all over the state. But
Well, it's all employers. You got a lot of law firms. Well, you can do a lot of work from home now. You don't.
well, lots of businesses
Yeah.
are. So as we need to pivot now to Fred, our
Yeah.
timeframe, but
Yeah.
this is an important
It's important
conversation.
and happy to
Yeah.
come back and talk more
Yeah.
about that. And we're happy to, we're just kicking off the designation reform. So we don't really have a lot to report now, but we're happy to come back and provide.
We'd
updates
love an
on
update
that.
before we leave,
Sure. So
if we could, if
happy
it
to, and I'm
makes
not the
any
lead
sense.
on that, but those on our team, Chris and Jacob, who are on the.
Terrific.
Would be happy to provide that update to you.
Right, thanks, Gary.
Thank you.
All right, yeah,
Thank
thanks
you
having
for
me.
your good work.
Appreciate it. Thank you for your work.
Well, we love your program.
Thank you.
And-
Appreciate it.
Okay, what are we're
You're
gonna,
paid now. Now you're gonna get paid.
Right?
thank you, committee. Thank you, committee, for your patience here as we whip through this, all these asks. This is really helpful. Fred, we have you back to chat with us about sections 30 and 37. There are two asks the RDCs have through ACCD. And if you'd be kind enough to address them, that would be great. Because you started, but now we had to end early and now
We'll try not to have a fire alarm.
we're trying not to have a fire alarm.
Well, that'd be great.
Really, that was Tom Cheney. I think it was, yeah, anyway. Both of you were impacted, so thank you.
Well, great to be back and see you again. Again, Fred Kenny, Executive Director of the Addison County Economic Development Corporation. And I think joining me there in the room is Melissa Bounty, who's my colleague at the Center Vermont Economic Development Corporation. She was very instrumental in helping to run the kind of the second iteration of this small business technical assistance exchange that we're proposing. I'm also the president of the RDCs of Vermont. So I gave you a brief introduction last Friday on both of these concepts. The Small Business Technical Assistance Exchange grew out of an effort that the RDCs did using first CARES Act money. We set up and stood up a program with some funds that were funneled to us through the Agency of Commerce to provide technical assistance to very small businesses to help them pivot and recover from the COVID, actually during COVID. It was an award-winning program. It won an award from an International Economic Development Association. Very successful, assisted over 800 small businesses, either as clients or as technical assistance providers. So that program evolved into, we kept it going with the with funding from that went through the SBA for what was called the blanking on the name.
Community Navigator Pilot
Right,
Program.
Community Navigator Pilot Program, CNPP. It was, they had several spokes around the Vermont SBDC of people providing technical assistance, and we just continued the program we already had going. And so between those two iterations of that program, we assisted 800 businesses. And another outcome, as I mentioned on Friday, is that we have this database of service providers, technical assistance providers, including attorneys, CPAs, architects, engineers, marketing people, photography, video production, that are all there and willing to help small businesses, improve their small business and continue to pivot and recover from the COVID pandemic. So, but both of those, obviously, both the funding from both of those, the source funding for both of those programs has ended. So we're proposing that the General Assembly appropriate funds to us to continue that program, with a couple of small changes to the way we operated it. You know, we had to live under ARPA and SBA rules for those programs, but what we plan to operate is very similar, and it would be the RDCs would be the connector between small businesses that need technical assistance and Vermont companies that can provide that technical assistance. So our program would connect them and walk them through writing a scope of work with the vendor, and then provide the funding for the technical assistance that is provided by the vendor. So that's the bulk of the funding would go to grants to these small businesses to provide that technical assistance to another small business, benefiting another small business. And we plan to focus it on rural areas and with businesses that are, historically disadvantaged. So it's in H484 for $1.2 million. That would provide the funding for us to administer the program, to have one of those community navigators to help businesses get involved in the program. We would also have someone at one of the RDCs be the person that connects with the vendors that want to sign up. We vet them to make sure they can actually do what they say they can do, and look at their history and their success with other small businesses. We did provide you with a document with a few amendments to what came out of the House on this program. We want to add a couple of elements to the eligibility requirements. Right now, it just says.
Did David get those? I'm sorry, I'm not sure I can put my fingers on that.
All right. I sent them in probably Thursday for Friday's meeting.
They're on our webpage, okay, and they're on, okay, we'd have to pull them up. And so there are amendments to section 30?
Yes. Yeah.
And has David Hall reviewed them and?
I don't know if David has seen them or not. I'm happy to email them to you all again and send them to David as well.
I think Scott has them. I think if you just walk us through, we may
Sure.
have another witness show up, but why don't you walk us through them?
So
And where would they be amended? Section 30 or sections 37?
It's section 30, the Small
Okay.
Business Technical Assistance Exchange. And the first amendment is to, hold on, I'm trying to get to scroll here.
What are you wanting to, and these are amendments because of coming out from under the ARPA ruling?
Partly, we've had more discussions with some of the organizations we would partner with, like the Vermont Professionals of Color Network, CWE, the Community Action. We would partner with them to do outreach. And in discussions, we want to change a bit to the eligibility language. Right now, it just says you have. Right now,
It's only just one sentence long, and quite honestly, it doesn't say anything about focusing on rural areas or underserved.
I'm not sure what you're looking at.
Section 30.
Then it's not,
So
section 30 may just be the appropriation.
It
is.
Okay.
So
Well,
it's
a
section,
bill.
it should be the
F,
section before
F.
that. Maybe 29.
Okay, you're right, it may be section 29. Okay, got it.
Yeah. it's
Um,
29.
What?
Big change was to drop the math requirement.
Okay, sorry.
Make the-
Okay, let me walk
Sorry,
through them in
Section
order.
29 language.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
So
So
the-
the big change is what?
The first change is in subsection 3, where we would add a $5 million maximum to their average revenue to make them eligible. So they have to have revenue of between 5,000 and 5 million to be eligible, to try to focus it more on small businesses. So,
Eligible. So we have, must have at least 5,000 in average annual revenue.
right, so we want to insert there and not more than 5 million.
Oh, that's a big range.
Yeah, it's a huge range.
Well,
And not more than.
we're
5
happy to make
million.
that lower, but we're trying to, make sure we capture
I can share.
eligible
That's
small
annual,
businesses.
right?
Annual average revenue, yes.
Okay.
Randy, you want to see this? Okay, so I'm just writing it in. And that's the first change, and not more than 5 million. That
Right,
makes
and the
sense.
next change will be right on the next line. We would add a C. B is the range. C would be must have operated the business for at least 1 year. We want them to have been in business for a year already.
So I must been in business for at least 1 year.
Right.
Okay,
Then the next amendment would strike section 4, subsection 4, which is a match, requiring a match. So the previous iterations of this program, we did not have a match requirement. We put it
You have
in
a 50%.
here, right, for certain businesses. Again, we've talked to the people that we would partner with, and they just think a match would be a, would cause a block,
Dampening effect,
yeah, in
Yeah.
the program.
too big a barrier.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so you're,
So
Just
strike
strike-
it entirely?
Strike section 4 entirely, yeah.
okay, wait, that doesn't include C, does that include the whole page?
No,
Yeah.
just
That's section 4.
Yeah.
Okay, great,
just 4.
okay, got it,
And then the last one would be to strike section C3.
C3, okay,
That's-
supporting businesses and anticipating and addressing, is that section?
Yes. So
Okay,
that was added by House Ways and Means, and it's well-meaning, but it's really, it's an odd place to put this, and it's not related to what we're trying to do here.
okay.
Frankly, what RDCs do already, so I don't know that it's
Yeah, I was
necessary,
gonna
but
say. Okay, and is that the end of your suggestions?
yes.
Okay. Great. Okay, committee thoughts. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, Scott.
So do you have a report from what you did already? This talks about a report?
Yes, we have a lot of data and information. So when I provided you a document with our request, and the second page of that is a summary of the report that we filed, that talks about some of the outcomes.
Oh, great. Okay, thanks. This is-
Right. So,
Not sure I understand a couple things here.
okay, Randy, why don't you ask?
First, on the issue of number 4, business hired the federal minimum, that's been stricken altogether.
Right,
Is that
that's
correct?
what they're proposing to do.
Yeah, because it doesn't make sense what's there, so I'm satisfied that that's gone.
Yeah,
Where did the 5 million come from?
We were just trying to come up with a top revenue number to box in the program to more small businesses. And we looked at the revenue of the businesses that applied to the previous 2 iterations of this program, and they were all under 5 million. Most of them were well below that, most of them were below 2 million, but
Yeah.
We just wanted to make sure we captured,
that's a good point.
enough small businesses, but wanted to limit it to small businesses.
It may sound like a high number, but there
It dep-
were.
Yeah, it depends on what kind of a business it is, and that's the
Exactly.
thing that I'm kind of getting
Yep.
at, that a $5 million business, that's a retail
Yep.
store
Yep.
is very different than a
Yep.
$5 million consulting business.
And it's industry sector wide, so we did have rural women-owned Northeast Kingdom businesses that were told higher annual gross revenue, but they still needed this type of support.
Thank you.
Okay, terrific. Any other questions? I think this is building on work that you have already done that's been helpful. I guess my one question that I'm still not clear on is how this dovetails with the program Sanders money has funded that is being done through the Vermont Small Business Administration and the law school. They're doing exactly the same thing.
The Community Navigator Pilot Program?
Yes,
So we were a spoke of that program. It's 9 organizations,
It's
and
9.
our contribution was this program. So the law school has a set of, we all have the same amount of money, and the law school has a set of programming. Vermont Professionals of Color Network has a set of programming. Our programming that we contributed as the RDCs was this program.
was this.
So we turned our money back into grants.
And the only one that's continuing is, what I understand, is the law school SBD D.
It's all
Yeah.
still active now until September. Our
Right.
funds are
But-
depleted, but I'm the navigator for the state and I'm still working on it. So there's still, the navigation services are actually a significant part of this, where you're talking on the phone to business and saying, you've never hired a vendor before, you've never read an invoice before. How did getting your website work out for you? So that service is ongoing until
Right.
September,
And-
and that's
and-
part of that.
Melissa, would you just identify
Oh,
yourself?
I'm sorry. And I don't know if I'm supposed to sit in the chair. I'm Melissa Bounty, Executive Director of Central Vermont Economic Development Corporation.
Great, that's what, I
Sorry.
just don't know. I
The,
just,
the way they would work together is if the law school continues their program, we won't need, if we have someone that comes to us with that kind of a need, we would refer them to the law school program, and we won't have to use funding from this program to pay for
That's
an
really
attorney.
helpful. You're referring people to that program that have specific legal needs.
Yep,
Okay,
all
Right.
the folks, as we're able to.
No,
We weren't necessarily doing services like this, but the law school is a big exception where legal services are provided.
so I would just say, being married to one of the, the professor who's involved with this, it is a terrific program, and he has been so impressed by the companies that have come and how they've been able to help them, and it's been very useful. And I understand Sanders had refinanced this
The
part of it.
specific work that they were doing,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, great. We have to pivot. This is really helpful. We have to pivot because we
All right.
have a request from the pro temp's office to address a need. But I think this is very helpful. If we have other questions, we'll be in touch, but I think this was helpful and got us through the rest of it.
I'm
All
fine.
right, no questions on the
Okay.
the other program, section 37?
37 is the 200,000, right?
That's, it was a $10 million request for the Rural Industry Development Fund. The House cut it to
Yeah,
5 million. Yeah.
I think we have had a pretty good, I think we've had a pretty full conversation with both you and Joan. And I think we are in pretty good, we're pretty clear on that.
All right.
I think
Yeah, well, I mean, we don't have really time, so we can contact them if we're not.
Yeah.
Right.
and we may be in touch later in the day.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. And we're going to pivot because Ann has a meeting in 5 minutes, and
Do I?
as does Randy. And so Mark, would you come join us? And this, what we're pivoting to is,
I was just talking on the side while is that not allowed?
well, we just need you here.
Okay. Oh, yeah.
But Michelle, if you want to stick around, Michelle,
Let's
if-
talk later.
okay, stick around if you want. We'll be done in a few minutes because we are losing 2 members, so we'll lose our
Total
quorum.
on this somewhere around 400,000.
So,
Somewhere around there.
hi, Mark, if you just introduce yourself and introduce, this is a last minute request. I mean, it's probably not last minute to you, but it's last minute to us.
Good
And
afternoon.
if you'd be kind of just tee it up for us, this is the pro tem and the chair, I think, have asked for us to consider this.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, Reverend Mark Hughes, for the record, Executive Director of Vermont Racial Justice Alliance. It's good to see all of you.
And you met Wendy when you were here
Yeah,
for
a
land
couple times,
access.
actually, I met him when he's.
I have,
Okay.
and I originally intended on offering you a brief slide presentation, but it would not read. The data that you have in front of you is not completely accurate, 100%, but just the flavor, just give you the flavor of what it is that we are doing. I think you know the policy work of the Alliance. You've probably also seen much of the outreach and education work. There is an element that has to do with the cultural empowerment, but what I'm here to talk to you about is about the community engagement and support aspect of the work that we're doing, because we know if we're doing work in marginalized communities, then of course there's folks that are impacted, and what we're trying to do is deliver services around their needs.
And you're delivering them, as from what we understand, through the Richard Kemp Center
Correct,
on workforce development issues.
correct,
Okay, so if you could just focus on that piece of it
of
for
course.
us so that we understand.
Of course. So in addition to much of the other programming that we've started to deliver out of the Richard Kim Center. One of the exciting things that we're rolling out this spring is some basic computer skills training, as well as some training surrounding adult basic education. But there's some workforce development stuff that's specifically directed towards resume review and help in preparation and coaching for interview skills and so forth. In addition to that, what we have currently is that there are a number of job fairs that we're planning, one which we just had in conjunction with the Turning Point folks. So what we, is it Turning Point? Pathways, I think it was.
Pathways sounds more like.
Pathways, it was. So yeah, so we're excited about doing some of this work, and it's overlapping, of course, with the youth services work that we're doing. And so I don't want to divert from the workforce development, but I'm excited to talk about all of it.
So this is serving kids of what ages, and how many kids are you hoping to serve in this? And it that give us that sort of notion.
Right. So part of the work is directed from ages like 10 up through 17, and then there's another program that we have from about 16 through 24.
And the Kemp Center is where?
The Richard Kemp Center is
Forgive
on
me,
the
but
corner of North Winooski and Riverside. So you remember where the community health centers of Burlington? I like to tell people the Sam's Furniture Store, because as soon as I say, hey, do you remember where this used to be? Everybody, Vermonters are like, yeah. So it is the old Sam's Furniture Store.
which is in Winooski or Burlington?
It's in Burlington.
Okay.
It's in the north portion.
But
of
it
Burlington.
serves both Burlington and Winooski, the Kemp Center.
It serves the entire region, in fact. It is in the old North End, obviously that historical area, and then Winooski is walking distance away from there. I think the marginalized community, obviously, that we're serving is, those who are Black and brown and poor folks who live in that particular area. But we've had folks come in from Heinsberg, we have folks come in from, Franklin County. And I'm not just saying Franklin County because you're sitting at the table.
Although it's you. And so how many kids this would help? This, you're asking us for $150,000?
No, total for close to.
Oh, I thought I understood.
These are
you were asking us
added to,
for.
Yeah.
Okay.
So we got a couple program managers. There's some after-school programming, some summer programming, community programs and initiatives, and we're also updating in a facility as well.
Yikes. Okay, so this is a bigger ask than I had thought. I thought we were talking about $150,000. So you and it's unusual. I mean, we're just seeing this for the first time. So and it's unusual to have a one nonprofit asking for money. We don't tend to do that as much as we used
Pro
to.
Tim explained that to me.
Yeah, sorry. And so why does this make I guess I'd ask, had you proposed this in the House and nothing happened? What's been the trajectory of this ask?
So this ask did not come up in the House. We didn't think about bringing this before the House. This is more of an ask that was almost like after crossover. We thought about the idea of coming to the Senate with the ask, because we heard that there's a possibility that we might be able to get some assistance.
The Richard Kemp Center, who owns, runs, manages, operates that?
Richard Kemp Center is the Vermont Racial Justice Alliance.
Okay. And is it a nonprofit?
Yes.
Is it registered as a nonprofit?
Yes.
Because I've looked for 990s, I can't find any.
Well, maybe we'll have to provide them.
So
How long
and
has
you,
it been in existence?
The Vermont Racial Justice Alliance? 2 years?
Yeah, it should have popped up, because they're automatically come up. But I was looking for the Richard Kemp Centers. I saw that. I looked for that. I didn't find anything, and I looked for Vermont Racial Justice Alliance, I couldn't find any 990s at all.
So Mark, what is your budget at the Richard Kemp Center?
I didn't bring any budget information.
But I mean, don't you run the Alliance?
I run the Alliance, but I don't run the Richard Kemp Center.
Okay, so
it's probably roughly about,
I mean, does it have a lot of staff? How many staff?
there's two staff there. There's probably, maybe probably about 100, 180, 100, 160, 180 or something like that.
People or dollars?
180,000.
Sort of the
Would be the
budget.
budget.
at the moment.
The budget.
This is for the Kemp Center, not
The
for
Kemp
the.
Center.
Right.
Yeah, I think the reason why you're not seeing that is because we're currently under a fiscal sponsor right now.
Who's the fiscal sponsor?
Vermont Interfaith Action.
Vermont Interfaith Action.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
that you can
That's
follow.
definitely
Yeah.
why.
Still, but
We
this is
have
a
a
big,
second fiscal sponsor for state
Yeah.
business as
I
well.
thought
and
this is a
that's
big
the,
ask.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
it
is.
is.
That's the folks over at the
So-
Chittenden County Regional Planning.
so Mark, forgive us because we all have to disperse. And
Yeah, I believe
but,
now.
but I guess my question is, this is a $455,000 ask for a fairly small center.
Mhm.
That's a big ask for a small budgeted outfit.
Mhm.
So it's like, if the budget is roughly $180,000, I mean, this is a lot more than the total budget.
Yeah,
Okay,
it's, I think part of the budget is,
thank you.
Thank you.
thanks for sticking around as long as you did. So,
So I'm just gonna go adjourn us because we're,
okay.
We don't have a
we're
quorum
gonna
anymore.
adjourn